Ladies and gentlemen, our first of two podcasts on the Count Yorga character, Robert Quarry, was asked for by our great follower of the channel, John Walco. But he wanted us to talk about the sequel because the beautiful and vivacious and intelligent and talented Mariette Hartley played a huge role in the movie and drew a lot of interest. Now, Count Yorga was called the Death Master. And in the title of their poster, they said the Death Master is back from beyond the grave. Now, the return of Count Yorga, the sequel to Count Yorga Vampire, was originally titled Yorga Returns. Came out in 1971 and starred again Corey as Yorga, Roger Perry, Yvonne Wilder, George McCready, Rudy DeLuca, Edward Walsh, and Craig T. Nelson in his feature film debut. Bob Keljan directed yet again. It is a sequel again to the 70 Count Yorga Vampire. The story features Quarry returning as the infamous vampire Count Yorga, along with his servants Bruda, both of whom have been revived by the supernatural Santa Ana winds. Actor Roger Perry, who had a lead role in the first film, appears again, but as a different character. Now, Cynthia Nelson, a teacher at the local orphanage, prepares a fundraising costume party. Meanwhile, orphan Tommy wanders in a nearby cemetery and hears a voice ordering, "Rise, rise. It is time." Then vampire women rise from their graves. Tommy tries to escape but runs into Count Yorga. At the costume party, Yorga surreptitiously bites one that gets Mitzi and becomes infatuated with Cynthia. When people start noticing Mitzi's weakened state, Yorga leaves. He returns to his manor where he is greeted by Bruda, his Hulkin valet, and the female vampires from the cemetery. Yorga sends a vampire to Cynthia's house. They break in and attack her family. Tommy, who was staying there, is untouched but remains under Yorga's power. Cynthia is subdued and carried to Yorga's residence. Due to his hypnotic suggestions, he has no memory of the attack. Yorga tells her there was a car accident and she was left in his care by her family. Yorga wants her to willingly become his bride, despite being warned by his live-in vampire witch that Cynthia will bring his end if she's not killed or vampirized soon. The next morning, Jennifer, the Nelson's mute maid, finds the bodies along with Tommy and calls the police. As she does this, Bruda arrives and drags the corpse to a quicksand pit on Yorga's property. By the time the police arrive, all the evidence has been cleared away, and Tommy claims that nothing has happened. Despite this, David Baldwin, Cynthia's fiancé, becomes suspicious. Meanwhile, memories of the killing start to resurface in Cynthia's mind. A nervous Jennifer, suspicious about Tommy's visits to Yorga's mansion, slaps him. He stares at her in a vengeful manner. Meanwhile, Yorga goes to claim Mitzi, killing her boyfriend before draining her completely of blood and turning her into a vampire. Now, this is where it gets good. Ellen's fiancé, Jason, is later lured to Yorga's mansion by Tommy on the claim he had found Ellen. At the mansion, Jason is reunited with Ellen, who has also been made into a vampire. She mocks him and starts laughing before her fellow brides attack him. Jason breaks free, only to run into Yorga, who strangles him. Bruda leaves Jason's body for the brides. That evening, Tommy kills Jennifer with a knife. After learning of the death, David decides to go after the Count and convinces Reverend Thomas and police detectives Madden and O'Connor to join him in a rescue mission at Yorga's mansion. Reverend Thomas distracts Yorga while Baldwin, Madden, and O'Connor search the manor, armed with sticks they can cross to ward off the vampires. However, Thomas falls for Yorga's claims and reveals their scheme, alerting Yorga of danger. Tricked into walking into the quicksand pit, Thomas sinks to death, a very effective scene, by the way. Yorga awakens his brides, who physically, while psychically, calling Cynthia, married Hartley, to them. Now, Baldwin splits from the detectives to expand the search and eventually discover Jason's corpse, covered in bite marks with an IV draining his remaining blood. Baldwin finds a half-mind-controlled Cynthia and attempts to escape. Bruda then nearly beats him. Falling in a suit of armor, Baldwin grabs a metal mace and knocks Bruda out with it. Now, meanwhile, Madden and O'Connor come across Yorga's brides. The detectives shoot at them to no avail. In the midst of their escape, they encounter Bruda and manage to kill him. Eventually, O'Connor is separated, attacked, and bitten by the witch. Madden tries to save him, but gets lured into by a voice from the shadows, thinking it is Baldwin, and then killed by Tommy. Now, Baldwin and Cynthia are the only ones left alive. And mocking Baldwin throughout the estate, Yorga seals her exit while his brides close in on the two. Yorga takes Cynthia away, a very effective scene again, while leaving his army to finish off Baldwin. Yorga is about to take her as his new bride when Baldwin appears, seemingly having escaped the evil women. Yorga takes Cynthia to a balcony as Baldwin grabs a battle axe from a wall and chases the two. Yorga fights Baldwin, who seems stronger than before. Eventually, Yorga gains the advantage. Just as he's about to kill Baldwin, Cynthia's memories of the massacre resurface. Realizing Yorga was responsible for her family's death, she strikes Yorga in the chest with the battle axe. Then Yorga is thrown off the balcony by Baldwin and dies on the pavement below. Now, as a result, Cynthia hugs Baldwin, believing the ordeal over. Not so fast. However, she then sees that Baldwin's skin has turned pale and bite marks are on his face. He actually did not escape from the brides unscathed and has transformed into a bloodsucker. Cynthia tries to run from Baldwin, who pulls her back and bites her. Tommy later plays with his ball in front of the orphanage, seemingly still under evil influence. Now, very, very concise 97 minutes. The cast, up-and-coming actors, and later stars. Written by Bob Keljan and Yvonne Wilder, produced by Michael McCready. Again, Roger Hartley, Barry Hartley's in here, Roger Perry, and cinematography by the great Bill Butler. Edited by Laurette Audney and Fabien de Torgeman. Music by Bill Marks. Production company was Pepper Tree Productions, with AIP releasing it at August 18th in LA at 97 minutes. Now, the key one here is this in joke. In one scene, Yorga is seen watching a Spanish language version of the Vampire Lovers on his TV. Now, a third Yorga film, which would have featured a broken Count Yorga living in LA sewers and creating an army of undead street people, never materialized. I would love to see a movie like that. Though Count Yorga is referred to as the Death Master in publicity for this film, a later film called The Death Master, also starring Robert Quarry as a vampire, has no relation to the Count Yorga series. Now, film was released again in 1971 and became one of the later VHS home video full screen formats in 1993 by Orion Home Video, which once held home video distribution rights to many titles in the IAB catalog. Now, the film was given a second VHS release by MGM in September 2000. It was later released on DVD by MGM in 2005 as part of his Midnight movie series. The disc, again, was a double feature release, pairing the film with Count Yorga Vampire like it was at drive-ins in Canada back in the day. When CBS ran the movie in the 1970s on a Friday late-night movie, heavily cut, the on-screen title was Yorga Returns. But returns from where? From the dead, from movie graves. Now, New York Times panned the film. Howard Thompson said it was a dull, amateurish vampire brew. Variety called it, though, a solid follow-up to the original and a handsome-looking film which rings the bell on both the shocker and satirical level. Gene Siskel of Chicago Tribune gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4, calling it extremely frightening, and added, persons familiar with the original find the sequel better photographed, better acted, and containing more mayhem a minute. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times wrote, those who saw Count Yorga will be disappointed. Those who only see the return will wonder what all the fuss was about in regard to the original, because it didn't have a lot of buzz at the time. In the first film, comedy gave way to terror. In this self-conscious sequel, the two elements tend to cancel each other out. The result is a pretty silly show. David Peary of the Monthly Film Bulletin wrote that Count Yorga had been resurrected with considerably more enterprise and panache than before. He praised the acting as being of a generally high standard, and the castle set as skillfully utilized to give the impression of a labyrinth of Borgesian proportions, though he criticized a totally unnecessary feeble attempt to make the Count into a sympathetic figure throughout such lines as, the most fragile emotion ever known has entered my breast. Yeah, say that 3 times straight without, suffering from diabetes. Now, the Hammer movies had a big influence on the vampire movies, especially Blackula, this, a few others, because it was crossing over. People were watching these movies and going to Hammer, and the Hammer movies were being watched and were going to this movies. Hammer were putting out movies, 200,000 American, But Count Yorga, the first one, I think, if I was accurate, $1.3 million. That's a lot of cash. So somebody must have cashed a check. This movie, I've only seen half of it, and I tell you why. We went to a drive-in on the North Shore, and my mother got sick during the second half of the movie. I still don't know how the movie ends. I saw the first half, very effective, because it literally was Count Yorga and the sequel. So it is what it is. But if you're going to operate a drive-in in any place in Canada, States, you got to pick at least 50 horror movies, B-level movies from 1963 to about 1972, and stop with Dracula AD or whatever. But this movie, like I said, for certain people, they were highly disappointed that it wasn't as good as the first movie, but they were highly excited that they made a sequel because a lot of people felt that the first movie could have been bigger, like a TV movie or like a series. I would not have been surprised if ABC or NBC, which were the horror, killers at the time, wouldn't have tried to turn this into a series. Like, for example, you get like a Louis Jourdain character who's played evil before, because I think he played Dracula, if I could be wrong here. I know he did one movie. Get a Louis Jourdain or even, a young Alex Trebek. I know it sounds weird, but he was a good actor. Alex Trebek could act, unless it's really stupid people who reach for the top, and then he couldn't hide the fact he despised them. So, ladies and gentlemen, the whole Yorga series, out of 5 stars, I'm giving 3.5, because it wasn't what people expected. It was a little bit over the top, a little bit under the radar, and word of mouth really worked. I haven't seen any box office numbers for the 2 movies, but I think it broke even. But it was a late VHS release. A lot of people felt it should have been released in the beta format, but the problem is Orion had the rights to AIP. Thanks for listening. Bye.